Everybody wants to know what I would do if I didn't win. I guess we'll never know.
Imagine making a difference. No, imagine being the difference. The difference between I can't and I can, or I won't and I will. The reason someone chooses to wake up and strive for greatness. In life, it can feel like everything is working against you. Let's defy all odds and break generational curses. This is Overstepping Poverty with Daquan and Zacchaeus. Welcome back to Overstepping Poverty, the podcast that provides you with tips, tricks, and hacks in overstepping poverty. My name is Daquan Brooks, and I'm here with my co-host Zacchaeus Shaw. How you doing, Zacchaeus?
I'm doing good, my friend. You know, just brought our son home from the hospital finally on
Congratulations
Sunday.
on that, man.
So it was a long 3 weeks in the NICU for my son, but finally home. So losing a little more sleep than I was before, but definitely glad he's home, and just kind of full circle getting the whole family together.
I love that for you. You know, I do just have to ask, like, mentally, emotionally, you know, in that period of time, just kind of, how are you feeling and how are you handling everything?
I'm handling it well. For Xavier, it wasn't like a life-threatening situation. It was more so he was just born a few weeks early. So it was more so working on getting his feedings to where it needed to be. He was supposed to be eating like 80% of his feeding 80% of the time. So that was a challenge just because he was eating what he needed to for us, but when the nurses were feeding him, he wouldn't really eat. So it kind of messed the numbers up, but we just had to kind of hunker down in the NICU and just get it done.
Absolutely. It took a little bit of time to learn that everybody eat because everybody food, right?
Everybody got to eat, you know what I'm saying? But no, he's doing really good. It's a blessing, and excited just to get into the life as a family of four. Like with him being in the hospital and even during pregnancy, it's kind of like a waiting game, especially as the father. You know, you don't get that same connection with your baby as they're growing in their mother's womb. So it's a little different. It doesn't really always hit you right away. And even then, you might not even feel like you have that instant connection. It kind of takes time, honestly, to have that bond and connection with your kid, but it's all worth it, man.
Understandable. I love it.
How have you been?
I've been great, man. This last week has been an adventure. I mean, obviously, we've been meeting quite often. There's a few things with Overstepping Poverty that's going to come out here shortly that we're super excited about. On top of that, just as far as just career field, my life in general, just things as going into emotion, you know, it just feels like everything's right. Everything's in the right place. So I can't complain, you know, I'm blessed. And I know this, once this airs, people are going to know exactly what the agenda of our baby is going to be. But I'm excited because tomorrow we get to go in and we get to do the process of that. This is the first time I'm going through all this. So I'm just like, I don't know what to expect, but like, I'm just expecting just super great things that I can be grateful for. But on top of that, you know, on Thursday we get to host Thanksgiving, and we also get to do our gender reveal then. And it's something that's been super special for me, and that I've been looking forward to for quite some time here, you know, so I'm excited. I'm super excited.
That's awesome, man. And I have to ask you, before we get into this and introduce our special guest for this episode, I have to ask you the same question. As you guys are going through all this with the trials and tribulations that you guys have gone through to get to this point, how are you doing, and how are you handling?
You know, like I said, I'm super blessed, and you said there were trial and tribulations there, which there were a few times where, you know, we were pregnant and then we lost the pregnancy, and that was a lot of mental things that we had to get through, as well as emotional. But together, I mean, we can definitely do anything. And so we were able to get past that. And I kept telling my wife, and it's kind of like a thing that you have to continue to tell each other, that the next time it's going to be there. You know, it's the next time God always ensures that when it's the right time, it's the right time. And now's the right time, so just mentally, emotionally, I think we've been doing really good. We're just now to the point where I feel like it's going to be more real for me, just because knowing the gender. I know it's been like super real for her, obviously. Right. But just as a guy, like you said, it's not something that you can really connect to just super emotionally, just right away. There's times where I'm just like, gosh, why do I feel like I'm having a kid, but I'm not having a kid? You know what I'm saying? Like, right. Until like, when do I really feel like it sets in and it gets super real? And I feel like there's different steps. And I think this next step of finding out the baby's gender is one step where it gets close to where it's like, wow, this is real, right. So team boy, let's go.
Let's go, baby. Well, I would just say enjoy, the time while she's pregnant and you're not, and the baby's not here yet. Cause it's kind of like, the last dance almost, where you get this different type of freedom that you'll never have again because there will be a whole new responsibility in life. So
understandable.
Enjoy it, my friend. Well, let's get into the podcast today. Like I said, we have another special guest. I'm super excited to have this guest on the podcast. I think she's going to bring a fresh perspective on different journeys through life that she's been through, as well as the different awesome things that she's wanting to do for this community and just all over the place. So I'm going to introduce today Maleah Grigsby.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me on here. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you for coming on. Like I said, I'm excited to have you on. I think you're going to be the youngest guest that we've had on the podcast, the first college student on the podcast, which is all awesome. You go to Augustine University.
Yes.
And I'm just excited to hear all the things that you're involved in, all the things that you're really wanting to do, as well as your journey.
I am as well.
Yeah.
And so let's jump into that there. Just as far as the journey, we kind of took you through the format on how we do this podcast. And each start of the podcast, we, as well as our listeners and viewers, they get to learn quite a bit about our special guests, because they kind of deep dive into their background and kind of how they grew up and how they were raised and where they came from, So why don't you kind of dive into that for us? Because there's not a lot that we know about you, and we've been dying to know more. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. So I'm from Kansas City, Missouri originally. Missouri, not Kansas.
Okay.
Big difference.
Yep.
Home of the Chiefs. I'm a big Chiefs fan. But yeah, so I've kind of been in this space for a while now. So I'm a very ambitious person. I love just being a go-getter and just getting after things. I think back to when I was in middle school, while everyone else was playing sports and doing all the things, and I was doing that with them. But I also lived a whole life outside of school, and I was constantly pursuing my career, not because I was pushed into it because of my parents, but because I had a deep passion for it at a young age, and a deep passion for wanting to better the world around me. And I feel like I've been really blessed, and not only do I have the skills and the talents to be able to do so, but I've blessed in that I can help other people see the potential in themselves and draw that out of them. And and I think that's a really, really special quality. So I grew up, I went to private Christian schools all my life, and I'm at a private Christian college now too.
Right.
Grew up in a pretty, I'm 3/4 Black, but I'm 1/4 white. But I did grow up in a very white environment, white churches, white schools, white, just the world that I lived in.
Yeah.
And so it's been really fun this year, though. I'm part of Journey Scholars at Augustana. So it's for those of world majority people, to get to come together and have a brotherhood, camaraderie, and just a space that we can help support each other in the world that we live in.
Sure.
And so it's been nice to get to access a different part of my identity, something that's kind of been hidden within me for so long. I used to be scared to go to school with my natural hair, or Even just my senior year of high school, like it was a big deal. I did like box braids for my prom, my senior prom. And like, I was so scared of what my friends are going to say and think. But like, it was part of my identity just coming out. Just a whole new level of that. So yeah, that's a little bit about like my background, my home life and everything.
I want to stop you there because I want to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
You mentioned at a young age you were, you know, in school and you were in sports, but you were also pursuing your career at a young age. What does that look like exactly?
It looks like a crazy life.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. So it's like, how exactly were you pursuing your career and how did you get involved in doing that?
Yeah, most definitely. I owe a lot of my success to my dad. My dad is my ride or die partner in crime. He has opened up so many doors for me and connections for me. And he's always, you know, any questions or anything, like if I ever wanted to sit in with him at work or anything like that, he's always let me come in, be curious. He's embraced my curiosity because I think he's kind of seen like himself in me.
Right.
And he was kind of the same way growing up, but he didn't necessarily have the same kind of parents to like foster that and grow it in a healthy way. And so my dad really has helped me quite a bit. So yeah,
Awesome.
I did soccer and volleyball all through high school and middle school, and I loved it. But at the same time, I had so many different job shadowings and internships and volunteer positions and everything. And it was never this like identity thing of like, oh, I have to do this so that I look good for people. And like that was something that I started to come into like in high school. I did struggle with that a little bit, but it never started out like that.
Right. That's awesome. Well, I think it's really cool, and I think it speaks to, you know, really the power of not only your parents being there, but your father. You know, your father being in your life and being able to pour, you know, the resources that he's built and connected with, and being able to pass it on to you and help you. What is it like, you know, growing up in an environment with a black father and a white mother? Were you ever kind of exposed or encouraged to explore the black side of you?
Yeah, so my mom is actually mixed as well. So she's half black, half white. And so that's something that's on both sides of our family, which is interesting. But like my dad's side of the family, even though they're all black, like it's been a different kind of like stereotypical black, like they don't necessarily fit the stereotypes. They're doctors and lawyers and police officers and doing amazing life-changing things in the world. Right. But they don't necessarily fit the stereotype. And so, but then like my mom's side of the family, it's very broken, and we like to say it's colorful. But you know, they do fit the stereotypes there. So it's been this interesting, for me, this like internal conflict of trying to figure out what does black actually mean for me, and like how do I access that part of my identity without making it like my whole identity, because like I'm more than just who I am like ethnically,
for sure,
but like that is still part of me. So that's been a really interesting balance that I don't think I've even started to really come into until this past like 6 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad you're able to get more into that.
Right. And actually I want to deep dive into that a little bit more, just because when I look back to growing up in a black family, and then of course being adopted by an all white family, I felt like in the beginning of each, I had to figure out a true identity, you know, and I felt like in the very beginning, I kind of portrayed someone that I wasn't. And so it was tough for me to just air myself out of who I truly am. And that wasn't only for, of course, the white family, but it was also for the black family as well. Because I had cousins and whatnot. They're just like, I mean, you hear like the typical saying of, wow, I mean, that sounds very white of you, you know, like, you know, whether I'm speaking full sentences, I'm like, wait, hold on. Black people speak full sentences as well, just like I do. I mean, we're all intelligent. So just for you, did you ever really have a time where, of course, you went from one family to the other, and then all of a sudden you're just like, geez, I need to be myself, period.
Most definitely. There's the movie Green Book. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but one of the quotes from there that I just started weeping as soon as I heard it. But it says that like, if I'm too black to be white and I'm too white to be black, then what am I? And that is something I know every single like mixed person, every single like overly intelligent, African American. Like, it's a complex that all of us struggle with. And it's this understanding of we're not supposed to, like, no one is supposed to fit into a box. Like, we are all beautiful, like, melting pots, and like that's the beauty of humans is like we're not all the same. We're not supposed to be categorized in any way like that. Unfortunately, it's also part of the human brain to categorize people and to put people in boxes. But I absolutely have found that with even especially like with friends, where I'll go to like different friend groups. With my youth group, it was a very like, it was in the inner city. It was around a lot of like Black people. A lot of like, you know, gang stuff was happening either around us or like family members of my friends, whatever, were in gangs. And so I felt myself slipping into just a different kind of personality. I'm like, I don't even recognize myself. Like, who is this talking? But then when I went to school, I went to, you know, a classical education high school where it's like very poised and proper, and like, you know, we wore uniforms and plaid skirts and everything. And that was a whole other side of me where I was like, okay, I'm being torn in two different like directions.
Right.
Who is the real me at this point? And it was less of I want to be me and me questioning like, what does it mean to be me? And that was something that I really struggled with. And now I'm just like, I don't even care. Like, you know, if I wake up one day and I decide to like talk like this, and the next day I talk like this, like, oh well.
Right. I think that's powerful. And there's a few things I want to touch on, but in that aspect of, I relate being able to go from one group of people to another group of people and another group of people, and you almost find a way to fit in regardless where you go. So I think that's really powerful because of that identity that we're not really sure. We don't really know our identity completely, especially as we're growing, you know, and I think that also points to just naturally how it's kind of like survival, right? Like, you don't really know any other way other than to just try and fit in. But once you do start to find yourself, I think it's really powerful because you've already tried to be so many other things. It gets to a point where you're like, who am I? What am I even doing here, right? And on top of that, you know, going back to stereotypes and stuff like that, I think we need to take a, you know, step back and think about like who is writing these narratives, or like who's creating these narratives on what a Black person should sound like or look like, right? Or what a white person should sound like or look like. I think that was something I heard today, and it's actually from Kevin Durant. It's kind of far-fetched to tie it into this, but it came out that he announced that he was leaving Golden State when he did on his own platform because he wanted to be the person creating the narrative, right? And there's so many different factors that want to tell you what you are and, again, put you in a box, but we're so different, especially when you are mixed and you come from so many or have the experience of both sides. I think it makes you a secret weapon, really.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Totally.
I think that's awesome, but it's definitely challenges in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is. Now, of course, going to a private high school, correct? Can you tell me the experience on that? I went to a public high school. I felt like being in a public high school, I was exposed to many things. Now, I'm assuming as far as being in a private high school, you may come around, something completely different. So I just want to know kind of your perspective on growing up in a private high school.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually attended two separate private high schools because one was in Kansas City, and then my junior year when we moved here, I attended Sioux Falls Christian here. And so my experience in Kansas City was very different. It was a teeny tiny little baby school. There were only 11 students in my class, including me. So there was a lot of different dynamics, that both positive and negative dynamics that came with that. More one-on-one time with teachers, relationships that you had with your classmates were a lot tighter, but it also caused for, if there was any kind of conflict, like everyone was off that day, no learning was actually happening that day. And we did struggle. Like there were times that we would have little fights or whatever within outside of school hours, and you could just feel the tension in the room, whatever.
Right.
But there also was an amazing, we were super tight, and those were my siblings when I was attending that school.
Sure.
And so that was a very different experience than my experience here at Sioux Falls Christian, because, it is a larger school compared to what I was used to. Even though there were only about 100 students in my class, that was 10 times the amount of what I was used to.
Right.
And so it was very different. It felt more like a public school to me. Even just the education style. I'm someone that just loves learning. I really do love learning, but not in the public school type way. I loved having the classical education, and that's why I chose a liberal arts college now. But having just the, here's all of this information, and then just tell me all of the, I don't need to know when George Washington rowed a boat. Like, I don't need to know the date of that. Like, that's not important to me. But understanding why he rowed the boat, or like what his end goal was, or like what can we take away from that? That's what I love doing.
Like deeper thinking.
Absolutely.
Like
the
that.
critical thinking, the problem solving, like I light up with that kind of stuff.
Right.
Absolutely. And so what can you tell us that you take from that now coming into college?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's shaped the classes that I want to take now. One of my history classes is very much the traditional style. Here's all of these dates and everything, and just memorize them. I cannot stand that class. I can't stand it. But I'm also able to think more intelligently and think deliberately, and have intentional conversations with both inside and outside of the classroom. So I think it's actually shaped more of my relationships with people rather than necessarily how I do in class or anything like that. I do love my classes that we get to just discuss different things, or talk about different lessons and everything that we've taken out of books that we're reading or whatever. Right. But I think about different philosophical or even theological conversations that I have now. We'll just literally, it'll be 1 or 2 in the morning, and we're just talking about Jesus exists. No, he doesn't. And but in a kind, respectful, understanding kind of way, not this arguing over without any facts or anything like that.
That's dope. I always love those conversations as well, because those thought-provoking conversations are what I live for almost. I really do not like small talk. And that's one reason why I really enjoy the podcast, is being able to talk to people about their stories and their journeys. But oftentimes it doesn't feel long enough, right? Just an hour, because we don't really get to always get as deep into the conversation that, I would like into those really kind of deep questions. But from there, though, I want to go into where you're at now, right? So you're at Augustine University, you're with Journey Scholars, you help out with the football team. And tell us about the Smart City Women's Congress.
Yes.
What is this?
Oh, I'm so excited you asked. So this is a new project that I started back in June. I had someone reach out to me from San Antonio, Texas, because she knew I had a passion for this since I was in middle school. Tried to get this up and running when I was in 8th grade. The company I was working with, it just didn't quite work out. And I was like, okay, we're going to set that on the back burner for right now, but I know we're going to come back to that eventually. And so then I joined the Mayor's Youth Council. I was like, okay, this is it. This is my time. This is essentially what I'm wanting to do. It's going to be great. And it was so close to being the perfect thing. And I loved my experience there. And so much of what I do now is shaped because of that. But I was it's still not quite where I need it to be.
And when was that?
That was my senior year. So that was in 2022.
Okay.
And so then when I heard Joyce reach out to me, I was like, okay, this is our time now. And I was just giving it to Jesus, praying about it. And okay, I trust you. If this is actually supposed to happen now, you're going to pave a way for it.
Right.
And then literally a week after Joyce reached out to me, Dawn Marie was like, hey, I saw that you're in town. Can we meet? I feel like we have some stuff that we can work on together. And I was like, okay, Jesus, I get it. This is happening.
That's awesome.
And she was like, I have an amazing group of girls that would be so interested in this. And I think that we can make something really big out of this.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let's do it. And so we started it in September. We had our kickoff in September, and it's blowing up already.
Wow.
The amazing support that I've gotten from the community, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So essentially what our group is a gathering of women to come together to understand different civic issues that are going on in the community of Sioux Falls and come up with achievable solutions for those problems. We have different community leaders that will come in and speak. We'll have different showcases. We have different teams within the Congress. There's research and community outreach. There's social media. So it gives these girls practical application of real world work experience.
Yeah.
So it's a resume builder. It's helping them learn leadership skills. It's helping them learn communication skills, helping them to like actually know what their values are as they, as they're interviewing for a job and someone says, why should we hire you? Now they have like answers and responses that are like, okay, you're crazy to turn down these people now,
Right.
It's phenomenal what
That's
we're doing.
so cool. And how did you get connected with them in 8th grade? I mean, that's a journey, right?
Yes.
And to not give up on that is amazing.
Most definitely. And like I said, it all goes back to my dad. He had this connection and he was like, you want to go intern for them? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I've always said my dad has always like opened up the doors and allowed me to walk through them. He's never pushed me through them, never forced anything on me, but he's like, hey, there's this really cool door and it's open right here. Do you want to go through it? And it's always been my choice to walk through it.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And so with, the Women's Congress, as you're building this, what is really the ultimate goal? I know it's helping people with the, interviews and building their resume and stuff like that. But, when this thing is running at top performance, the way you would like it, what do you really see coming from it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, betterment of communities is the biggest thing for me. I'm only one person and I can only invest in the community so much, and having like-minded people that also want to go out and, they're going to start talking to their friends in different ways. It's a mindset shift and everything, so my goal is, okay, you have this like training essentially here, you go out, you talk to your people, they either come back and do the same trainings and everything, or they go out and they start talking differently to different people.
Right.
And it's creating an ecosystem. And I want it to start here in Sioux Falls, but, in a perfect world, this would get to be like a national thing.
Yeah.
And we're already in the works for making that happen.
That's awesome.
Very nice.
Could you ever see anything like this going international that you would like to do?
I would love that.
Yeah.
More than anything, I would love that.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Well, that's awesome.
That is. I do have a question with that as well, just for our viewers and listeners who are looking for something like that. How do they really contact or approach you guys to be involved in something like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the best way right now is to email us at smartcitycongress23@gmail.com. Otherwise, you can follow us on Instagram at scwc23.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. I think there's going to be quite a few people that listen to this and have been like in the back of their head, how can I get involved with a very powerful women's group and be more involved in the community and whatnot and help myself as well as help others? And so I think they're going to take this, and you think you're going to get some more people be involved in that group there. So on to our next thing here as well, just with that, just kind of leadership, as I look back into college, I think you and I are at two different levels. When I was in college, I'm not going to lie, I was there for a good time, as long as I could remember, until I got to about my senior year when I was just like, okay, now it's time to start getting serious, But I mean, you're a freshman, sophomore, and you have so many goals like in front of you, so many dreams that you want to accomplish. How do you take on that role as a leader?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's tough. I will tell you, it's really hard. And especially the whole idea of like staying in school is so difficult for me, because I'm like, oh, there's so many, like this whole world is open to me. Like if I just, if I drop out, then I could do this, this, and this. And it's like, my dad keeps reminding me, and my mom too, like, you're getting these opportunities right now because you're still in school. Like you have to capitalize on that. Like so much of my ecosystem right now is because of Augustana. Honestly, I can't imagine doing life without the people that I've met at school. And I know that's only going to grow over the next 3 or 4 years that I'm at Augie. But taking on a leadership role it's been interesting, out of my friend group, I'm typically like the oldest, at least by a year or two. And like leadership has looked very different and more, I'm the kind of leader where I don't necessarily dictate everything. But kind of what I was saying before, like helping to see potential in other people and drawing that out of them. So helping people understand what's within them that will help themselves, like help prepare themselves for their future. Because we all have the tools to be the best version of ourselves. We just have to have outside people to point that out to us.
Right.
Yeah. And when you think about it, right, for you growing up, you've mentioned multiple times how you attribute a lot of, up to this point in your life, a lot of things that you've been able to do to your dad. And I think the really cool thing when you look at that a little more, and then to see you wanting to do the same thing for other people, right? Like that is, I think as a parent, that's what you always want, is to create good kids and good people in the world. But for you to be out there and kind of lifting as you climb and helping people out along the way, I think that's amazing, you know, because like Daquan said, in college, and I talk about it, you know, same thing with my brother who is a freshman, just like my mindset was completely different. And when I look at your guys' generation, I know you guys get like a lot of hate, and I think the youngest generation always does. But at the same time, I see you guys as amazing. Like you're so far ahead a lot of times than, you know, our generation was at that age, because we weren't, unless it just was us, you know, and it could be,
right.
But even the people that I know that were on their stuff were not doing that.
Right.
You know, they weren't as involved, or they weren't as open about the things that they really wanted to pursue, you know, so I think that's awesome.
It is. It's really evolutionized. I mean, especially just because, you know, when it comes to our parents or our grandparents, I mean, grandparents, I feel like college wasn't like a huge thing where they're like, oh, you need to go to college. No, you know, it was more of go to middle school, then get a job, you know. Then it went to our parents. I felt like my mom and whatnot, like it was more of, okay, go to middle school, graduate high school, get a job, you know. And then now it was pushed on to like our generation where it's like the only way that you're going to be able to get a job is if you go to college. And now it's starting to really be pushed out there that, one, you don't need to go to college to do your dream job or whatever it is. But it's another accolade to have, you know, on your tool belt, you know, when you are in the interview or when you are doing. But on top of that, I think the biggest thing is, and what I see like you're benefiting from it, is the people and the relationships that you make during that time in college. And that's what we really benefited from as well. And it takes you a lot longer than I feel like, or not longer, but further than some people who didn't go to college. And then now they're kind of trying to do things on their own. But as a team, and you have more people around you and people to go to for questions or for advice or anything like that, like it's better for you. You know, you have that community that's just behind you.
The social aspect for sure.
It is.
Do you see that a lot on, you know, at Augustana? Is there a lot of different like events or things that you guys are able to be a part of where you are able to really express the way you feel even outside of Journey Scholars?
Most definitely. There's so many opportunities at Augie. Whatever your interest might be, whatever, you know, your niche is, there's a club for that. There's other people, other like-minded people there. And like, it's been really special just like even living in the dorms. I didn't expect it to be as positive of an experience as it is.
Yeah.
But like my roommate and I was a little nervous. I was like, I've known her for like 3 years now, but I'm like, living together is very different, but like now I get like separation anxiety from her. I miss her if I don't see her for too long. She's going to Korea to study abroad, and we're like, what are we gonna do for 3 weeks without each other?
Crazy.
Or even just the fact, you know, if I'm like bored, I'll just like go over to the guys' side of the dorm hall or whatever and be like, hey, who's up? Like, you want a game, whatever. It's special in that there is a certain like camaraderie that comes just from being students together. And like, especially as freshmen, like this is our first time experiencing on campus living, and okay, we have to like be big grown adults now and like taking care of ourselves, and like some people need a little more help with that than others. And like, but there's this beautiful like support system that's just at your fingertips constantly.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that's at most colleges, but I feel like Augustana has a really, really neat way of just incorporating all of, I don't know, just everyone.
It seems pretty tight knit.
It is. It really is.
Another thing I was going to ask you, with where you're at now in college, a lot of times weren't able to identify with the Black side of yourself. How has going to college allowed you to more so find your identity and really find who you are, instead of what everybody else says you are type of thing.
Yeah, actually your brother and his roommate have helped me out a lot.
Really?
Yes, most definitely. Even just like, we'll sit in my room and listen to like R&B music, or, we'll have like deeper conversations about it. Or like his roommate like has a white family, and so what does that mean to like still be Black and like inherit that culture and everything? Even little things of like, I'm good at braiding, so like the guys will come to me for like braiding their hair and everything like that. It's helped me like understand that this is part of me, and like this is something that I always strive to be a light in the world, and that's part of my light that I get to shine.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is.
I love that.
Looking at goals, because I feel like someone of your age, you're very ambitious, you're very driven, and I feel like most times when someone asks you, oh, what is your 10-year goal? It's like, what do you mean? I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing tomorrow, But I just feel like with you, it's completely different. I mean, just from a young age, you've always had an inspiration to be something bigger than what you are. And whether it's for you or for someone else, So I just have to ask, when you look 5 years ahead from where you're at today, or 10 years, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I still want to keep making an impact in this world, because I feel like that's where, not even just my validation, but like it's just within me to, help other people become their best selves and like, just be of service to the world that's around me and the community that I'm in. In a perfect world, I'll get to be a chief innovation officer in a public sector. That's like my dream job.
Okay.
Just because I love tech and innovation and everything. I'd love to work in a bigger city.
What does that entail, really?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of that is just bringing in new infrastructure for the cities to help them with technology or whatever it might be. It might be like working with city planners and everything. But I love that world so much.
Yeah.
Which is yet again me following in my dad's footsteps.
I was just going to ask. I was like, hold on. Does this relate to someone?
Yes, my dad was the chief innovation and technology officer for the city of Sioux Falls.
There you go.
Yes.
I love it.
That's awesome, though.
But like it's so fun, and like the conferences that I've gotten to go with him to, and like it's not just me like wanting my dad's approval, or like, which is how my mom's like, are you sure about this? Like, this seems like there could be ulterior motives behind that, and like maybe it started out by that. But now I'm so passionate about it. So passionate.
Right.
I love that.
I have to ask you, because your admiration for your father is amazing. I hope my kids love me as much as you love your father, I must say. But and I don't know if you've gotten a chance to tell him, but like, what does he really mean to you? Because he's had such a huge impact,
Most
and still
definitely.
does.
I actually just had this conversation with my dad the other day. I was like, thank you for just being you. Like,
Yeah.
because... And I will say, like, the relationship that I have with my dad now, it's not come easy. And, like, there was a period of time, maybe three and a half years ago now, I was not speaking to him. We were not on speaking terms. I was just frustrated and angry with the way that he was relating to me and just not being the kind of dad that I was needing in that moment. But through that pain and that turmoil that we went through, I learned how to... through my mom's like support, I learned how to advocate for myself and understanding, hey, you're not meeting the like needs of your own daughter, and like you got to flip some things around here.
Yeah.
And so him and I have put so much work into the relationship that we have now, and like, even it sounds silly, but like I feel like it set me up for like future like partnerships and being in a relationship, and like
For sure.
the fact that I can advocate for myself and know what I need out of a partner, out of a supporter, all of that, out of a leader of my household. But we've put so much work into it that it's so precious to me. It's like mining for a diamond, right?
Right.
Like there's so much turmoil and everything, and it's hard work.
Right.
But it is the most beautiful product in the end.
What did that look like? Because I know for a fact there's people listening to this that don't necessarily have that, especially from a daughter, have that positive relationship with their father or
Most
the father
definitely.
figure that they've had. And you're right, it does go on to affect the relationships that they have in the future with other people. So, like, what did that look like? What was your mother saying to you to help you advocate for yourself? Because I think that's the communication piece that we all need, right? Is to be able to tell people what we need so that they can treat us the way that we want to be treated. But if we can't, if we can't communicate that, it's hard, right?
Absolutely.
So
yeah, I mean, my mom always told me to like have your own back. So like that doesn't always just look like standing up for yourself, but like rather than outsourcing to fulfill something that's within you, how can you fulfill that within yourself and like set yourself up that way you don't like whatever happens around you and it doesn't necessarily affect you. It takes a lot of thought work, and it like
for sure.
My mom was a life coach, if you can't tell.
Okay. Well, that helps.
Most definitely. A little in-house therapist all the time. It's great. It takes a lot of work and everything within yourself, and you have to come to terms with things within yourself. And I had to come to terms with, okay, my dad's not going to be an overly emotional person. Do I wish that he was sometimes? Yeah, I do. But like, that's just not him.
Right.
And, there's a saying in our house, like, you can't blame a dog for barking. Like, you can't blame someone for just being who they are.
Right.
And I've learned to take time to understand who my dad is, the things that he can give me and the things that he can't give me. So how do I have to make up for that myself? Make up for the things that he isn't able to give me.
For sure. That's interesting. I think it is an interesting thing that happens as we get older and our parents are no longer like that superhero. They're like humans, and we figure out like, dang, like how did you go through everything that you did and still seem to keep everything together, right? So I think it's something that most people will go through where they're like, damn, like I actually need to learn more about my parents so I know why they even are the way they are. And it's hard at first to like grasp the concept that they even had a life before you, which is crazy, right? Because it's like, I think about my boys and they're like, by the time they're able to ask, what it was like before I had kids, will I even be able to remember what it was like before kids? I don't know. It's interesting as we get older though. So.
It is. It really is. Just a couple more questions here before we get into our next part of our episode here. One I really just wanted to hit back on, and that's just with college, just because you truly find yourself in college. You find exactly what kind of group you want to be. You find exactly how you are truly, for someone that's in college and for people that are going through college currently here, what is some advice, for them that you'd say to truly find yourself during this period of their life?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say don't put yourself in a box. I went in being the Kansas City football girl that like, I love football. I love football. I could talk for hours about football, but like, I'm not just going to be the football girl. I did like intramural volleyball with people. I did sand volleyball. I did, I've tried out some of the different clubs. I've gone to the different like worship nights and everything. Like, don't put yourself in a box to where you're not willing to like associate with other groups and everything. I see that with some of my friends, and like they just won't like go outside, like get out of their shell and whatever. Right. And like, this is your time to rebrand yourself. This is your time to, step outside of your shell, get uncomfortable, do the hard thing, whatever. And like, take advantage of that, because you are still in the safe place of college, and like, we're all just trying to get through it. Like, no one's actually paying that close attention to your life. Like, if you mess up, like, you're totally fine. You're not actually embarrassing yourself. Like, you're totally fine. College embarrassment is a very different level of, like, normal people world embarrassment.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Right. I love that. I really do. Our last question here before we get into the next part of our episode, it all relates back to this podcast here, and that's overstepping poverty. I think currently what you're doing, you're definitely overstepping poverty, and you're helping others do the exact same thing. So what I just want to know exactly from you is, from your understanding and what kind of definition you give overstepping poverty, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, overstepping poverty to me means, it's not just a lack of resources or access to resources, but it is a mindset. And it's this mindset of, when you're in poverty, you're in this mindset of feeling stuck, and like you can't necessarily get out from it. And that's a real genuine like feeling. But overstepping, that means, outsourcing, doing the uncomfortable thing. I will never forget when, this was a couple weeks ago, I was meeting with Vonnie, and I was, just complaining to him about everything that was going wrong in my life. And he was just like, oh, good for you. And I was like, you butthole. Like, I don't like you right now. Right. But it's true. It's like, we we grow so much because of the adversity that we go through. And overstepping doesn't mean that you're setting it aside and saying that it's not existing. It's saying, hey, I'm getting through this, that I'm overcoming this by pushing through. I'm becoming my better self. You have so much more compassion and empathy, and you're just better to be around when you've had to go through hard things and to overcome that.
Yeah.
I need like a mic drop right there. That was that was excellent. I love it. I love it. But let's take this now into our next part of our episode here. You know, obviously we've had you on the hot seat. We've been asking you quite a few questions, kind of digging into your background here. Now gives you a chance to dig into Zacchaeus and my background itself. So what this is called is Roundtable. So you go ahead and take it away. Ask us any questions that you have for us.
Yeah, so what I do is really focused here in the community of Sioux Falls. So most of and same with you guys. Yeah. So if you had a magic wand to wave, what would be one thing that you guys would change about the community of Sioux Falls?
That's a really good question. For me right now, it's a big topic that's going on, and we've talked about it with Dawn Marie a little bit, but I think that there is a huge issue in this state when it comes to school lunch, honestly, and like the resources when it comes to that. You know, we hear of different states where, you know, kids are getting free lunch regardless, you know, and that's something. And then also when you take the perspective, and I had this conversation with my dad, because we don't always see eye to eye on things, but we're able to communicate about them, you know, most times, which is good. But when you come from a state like South Dakota that feeds the world, we shouldn't have people that are having a hard time when it comes to eating food and having to pay for it. Yeah. That's just my opinion personally. So if there was one thing that I would like to see changed when it comes to Sioux Falls in this community, it would be that, you know, in a place with so much money and people that are doing so well, to know that there's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that are sitting there unpaid for lunch, and then in turn that's coming out of teachers' salaries. That doesn't seem right. So that's what I would want to change.
Yeah. Definitely.
For me, I think it's going to be more on the representation side. I think a lot of people in the community right now, they want to do all that they can to reach out and help people, but they're afraid. They're afraid of either what their family's going to think of them, what other people are going to think of them, and they're still fighting a battle inside on what really they're going to think of themselves, you know, on that. And that just because when you are trying to help people, you're being very vulnerable. And I think just as a community, there's times where we kind of put a shield on these people, and they're like, you know, you can't come through here and you can't help because I'm doing this. But in reality, we can all become a community and help everyone, you know. And so I think that's something that we've run into quite a few times, where there are people who are just like, well, what can I do? What can I do? Well, I mean, you know, you can start by more of just answering that question yourself and just being vulnerable and getting out there and just doing whatever you can. I think so many people think that they need to do a lot, when really all it takes is for you to do a little to make a big difference. So
totally.
Yeah, find a need and fill it.
Yep.
It's really that simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to ask you, what would you change?
Well, what would I oh no. I think I would, similar to that, change the ambition and the mindset of the majority of the people here, in that like we are all in this together, and like it takes a village to raise up a village. Like we have the opportunity. Sioux Falls is such a unique culture and environment here, and we have the ability to literally change the world from this small town. And there are absolutely amazing people, that community leaders that are doing that and fully like capitalizing on that. But I just wish we could get more people involved in that world.
Yeah,
For sure.
completely agree.
My next question for you guys, kind of touching on what I was just saying, but what do you think it is that sets Sioux Falls apart from other cities?
Man, I'd probably just say just the availability for growth. You know, I think a lot of cities, they grow too fast, and then they just become, I mean, just another city. That's it. You know, another city that has high population, another city that has high crime, or, you know, high homeless. anything like that. And I think as far as Sioux Falls, I think we have a lot of leadership here that continues to allow the growth, but still monitor it. And I think in many cities, they do a poor job monitoring that growth, and they allow them to become like a Denver. That's one city that I loved going to, just the heart of downtown Denver. And then now I go there and I'm just like, man, what is this? What has this become? There's human feces that I've stepped on there, and I'm just like, okay, this is no longer my favorite place to go. But as far as Sioux Falls, like I said, there's just so much room for growth here, and there's so much potential, and especially for people of our age and people who inspire to become, leaders and inspire to become entrepreneurs and business owners and whatnot. There's just so much of that here, and we're allowing it to continue to grow. We're nursing it, So I think that's great for Sioux Falls there.
Yeah, I think Sioux Falls, there's a few different things that I think set it apart. Like when it comes to like wanting to build, whether it's a business or build a family or build your future, I feel like it's a great place because you can get all of those things. It's actually was rated the number one, either most desirable or most affordable places to live in the United States. So that says a lot. But I've said it before, it's one of those places where there's a lot that's never been done. It feels like it's just open for the taking right now, honestly. Right. And I feel like, with what those guys are doing with Think 3D and what's going on at Augie and just a bunch of different places within Sioux Falls, I see things just kind of popping up, right? And it's like, okay, we're getting more, we're building more. You're starting to see more of the fashion stuff with like Tyler Blake, and now there's a new space for creatives, and I see a lot of those things growing. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Like I said, I think it's something where this city is kind of for the taking, and, even for those that aren't from here, there's people that can move here and start a business and be operating a 6-figure business just like that, pretty quickly, because of the type of economy. And I don't know, it's just one of those places that you always see people come here and they're like not really sure about Sioux Falls, and then they get here and they're like, I like the girls, or I want to stay, or something. Like there's some reason why they never go home. And so Sioux Falls is just it's an awesome spot. It's an awesome spot.
Totally. Yeah. No, I'm a testament to that. I was so mad at my parents. I was like, you're moving me where now?
Right.
We lived downtown Kansas City. Like it was so cool. We had a beautiful view of the city skyline where like buildings were taller than 12 stories. Right. And like, I was like, you're moving me to Sioux Falls? What? No way. I was like, I'm going to hate it here. Now I'm like, don't ever take me away from it again.
Right.
I'm never going back.
It's a crazy place. And I think it's really cool. I think the most unique thing about Sioux Falls is that it has no culture, like no set culture. And if it did, it's gone, and even more so as certain people get older and aged out, it's going to change even more.
It is,
so it's really that melting pot. Living in Vegas, it was kind of the same thing because there was no true culture there. You had people coming from Hawaii, California, all over the world really coming to Las Vegas. So you're in class with people that pretty much nobody in your class is actually from Vegas. Kind of feels that way now with the friend group and the people I'm surrounding myself with now. Is most of the people aren't really from here, but they're living here and they're from here now. So yeah, it's a great place.
It is.
Totally.
It really is.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Any other questions for us?
One more question for you guys.
Perfect.
So obviously with what I do, I typically work with like the younger generations, my generation. How have you guys seen, different younger generations step up in the Sioux Falls community specifically, and really making a difference?
We've talked about it a little bit. I see it with you. So having coached middle school football really for like the last 5 years, my first group of kids that I coached are seniors, so they'll be graduating. So it's kind of interesting, but it's also cool to see and have a connection to that younger generation. What I can see most is just kind of from my brother. My brother is somebody who I think he's beyond his times. Like, I don't know what my parents really did with him, honestly, because he's not like any of us, but he is at the same time. He just has such a unique mind, and I don't know if it's just that generation, because we talk about you and kind of how ambitious you are, and really like when you think about how you guys were coming up and the things that you were going through as you were young, like super young, was 08, 09, the market crash and all those hard times, and coming out of that is really where you guys started to find yourselves and hitting those crucial ages of middle school and really forming your minds. I mean, they say that that time frame of your life is when you really get that drive, and like they date it back to your middle school age. So, you guys are special. I think you guys are really special, because I see you guys not more so caring about and it's weird to say because you guys are like really sensitive when it comes about like politically correct things. But at the same time, I think that it's like you don't necessarily care about the suit and tie, I guess is what I'm really trying to say. Like you guys more so care about like what's right. Right. And like, let's just treat people right. And like my brother's a big person who's like, forget all the money. Like, why do we have these issues of homelessness and stuff like that? So I think you guys care more about the human, honestly, than maybe the dollar.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is interesting.
My question is I mean, define young, because I'm not 30 yet. I'm still young. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
that's true.
So yeah, I'm still young. Right? I'm still young out here.
You're a baby to somebody.
Right. No, but the one thing that I truly see from our younger generation is they're not allowing people to change their narrative. They're able to truly find themselves and truly just go out there and do whatever it is that their heart desires. I think just as far as many generations before, we allowed society to shape exactly who we are and pretty much shape the where we're going in life and the steps that we're going to take to get there. Just as far as the younger generation, they're able to just go out there and they're building these businesses. Like you said, they're able to help different groups that they want and whatnot, and they don't look back and be like, you know what, I don't think I can do this because my grandpa said that. It just doesn't seem like you should be doing this. It's more of, I'm going to do this because I feel like this is what I'm here to do. This is what I'm meant to do. And so they're taking more chances. And I think in many of the generations before us, people didn't take those chances. They allowed either a school system to tell them exactly, you know what, you're going to grow up, you're going to be in the workforce, and you're just going to work for the rest of your life. Where here now, you see all these people who are like, okay, you know what, I don't need to grow up to be in the workforce. And in fact, I don't need to grow up to be able to be that leader to really drive my own workforce, like, and have my own employees or anything like that. So I think that's one thing that I truly see, even though there's so many people who give so much like negative things on this younger generation, and I think one thing that they always say is, you know what, I feel like they're fast generation, where they feel like, you know what, when I get to something, I need it right now. I need to reap the rewards right away, when it comes to that there. But I've been seeing the complete opposite. I've been just approaching so many younger people who just have a vision, and they're setting just their goals and their ambitions, and they're taking it step by step. And I think that's one thing that, of course, that people always fail, do, because instead of doing things step by step, they go into it and they're just like, okay, you know what? I put in the work in, so I should be rewarded right away. And people always relate that to the younger generation. I'm just not seeing it. So
I think that they do, though. I think that they do. It's like the microwave era. Like they do want things super fast. But I think at the same time, that's where like the traditional way of doing things goes out the window. Because just because it's been done one way for so long doesn't mean that they can't figure out a way to do it in 5 minutes just as good, if not better. So I think it more so is like the problem solver, right? Like they're like, yeah, that's dumb. Why are you doing it like that? Let's do it like this.
Right. But see, that's the thing though. I think where so many people get it confused is they hear them say, you know what, I deserve this stuff right now, because we're all becoming more vocal about what we want in life and what we deserve in life. Instead, they hear them say this, but what they don't see is that they're still putting the work in every single day, in and out, to get exactly what they feel like they deserve.
Right.
So that's kind of where I see it.
Yeah. What is your perspective on that?
I think we are all about efficiency. Not saying like the quality has to go out the window, because I think we do still like quality, but we are about like being deliberate and intentional, but also efficient.
Yeah.
If I can get it done in 5 minutes, I'm going to. I'm not going to take like the long route to get there.
Right.
But if it takes a long route and that's the only way to get there, yeah, sure, I'll do it. But I'm also going to try and find a way that makes it shorter and easier,
Yeah.
It might be 5 minutes this way also, but, there's a huge hill I have to climb in order to get it. So, but this way, it's all downhill, and, it's downhill both ways,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So it's more about efficiency.
So I have to ask you, with your mother being a life coach, do you feel like that is... Like when you talk about the efficiency and stuff like that, do you feel like she's coached you on those things?
Yes, most definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
Most
okay.
definitely. A lot of the way that I think about life, and more so the way that I present myself, has a lot to do with the thought work that I've done beforehand.
Right.
Growing up in, my mom didn't do life coach training until I was in middle school or high school. And so it was essentially this family learning experience at the same time. So, as she was learning all this stuff, she was sharing it with me and my dad and my siblings. And so we've been able to communicate our thoughts and our feelings in different ways that have been, more beneficial, that we've been able to get more positive results rather than, starting a conversation where you're way up here and you're screaming and yelling and whatever. It's okay, I'm taking a minute. I'm only in control of my own feelings. I can't let you, it's only me letting you make me feel some way. And I have the power to control how I respond to whatever it is that you do. And so, yes, it is constantly my mom in the background. I just hear her voice constantly yelling at me.
For sure. No, it's valuable.
Right.
It's valuable. And the reason I asked is because the way you just, I can tell that you're a leader, and I can just tell the way that you speak about your generation is we're going to figure this stuff out. And it just seems like it comes from a place of it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
You know what you're talking. Okay.
Totally.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Awesome.
Well, we've been asking so much of you from this episode of Overstepping Poverty here. I do just have one more big ask, and that is, what are 5 tips, tricks, and hacks that you can share with people, in overstepping poverty?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first is be unapologetically confident in yourself and your value. This is something that I didn't grow in until probably the last 3 months. And I've noticed a difference not only in the way that I view myself, but even the standards that I have for the friends that I allow to be in my life, or the way I let other people talk to me, and having standards for the way that people interact with you. It's not conceited. It's, we live in the Midwest where it's you have to be this Midwestern nice, where you can't oppose anything that anyone says, but you start losing your backbone when you do that. So being confident in yourself. And I've noticed a difference in the way that people do treat me. And I haven't always had to ask for that. And this is so fun. But yeah, be unapologetically confident in who you are. The second is, you were kind of talking about this, fill in the gaps as you see them. I wanted to make the Smart City Women's Congress thing happen from a young age, and I knew that there was a gap there, and I kept trying to fill it, and it was the hole was getting halfway filled, then 3/4 of the way filled, and now I feel we actually are filling it.
Right.
So fill in the gaps as you see them. The third is live in the mindset as if you already are where you want to be. So I'm living in the mindset of I'm already Chief Innovation Officer in the public sector, because that's the goal that I'm striving for. When you have that mindset of you're already there, and I feel God paves our way and He knows the desires of our heart. But when you live in the mindset of you're already there, there's certain things that you do and you live your life very differently in a way that will actually get you towards that goal and get you at least closer to that goal.
That's one of the laws of life.
Yes, most definitely. 4 is immerse yourself in different lifestyles and cultures. Something that I've gotten to do because of Journey Scholars, I've gotten to be friends with people of different cultures and religions and backgrounds and like different home lives and everything. And getting to compare and contrast that to the way that I live my life, you grow in so much empathy and compassion and grace. And like, you know, even my conversations with my family now look very different. And because I'm educated on more of like a worldview rather than just my very like Americanized view on the world, you know? And then 5 is create connections and don't be afraid to take advantage of them. Moving to Sioux Falls, I was like, okay, like this is happening. I'm going to make the most of it. And I was like, I'm going to go out and meet as many people as I can and, you know, create really strong connections. And as a result of that, now that I am growing my business, I have people that I can actually lean on and ask for their support. And because I created, you know, I fostered that seed at a very like early age, whatever, I now get to like lean on those people.
For sure. Yeah, that is a benefit when you do plant those seeds. You never know when you're going to need them.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or when they'll be ready for you to pick the fruit. So
absolutely.
It's powerful.
That is. And that was a very good 5 tips, tricks, and hacks there. We definitely appreciate you giving those. We appreciate all the information that you've shared so far on our episode. And Zakiya said it right in the beginning. You know, to have someone that is, you know, in their young collegiate career, you know, and just going through the things that we already went through, and many other people who are listening to this podcast is just, it's very valuable, you know, when it comes to that, as well as it's valuable to those listeners out there right now that are in college and they're trying to find their confidence and trying to figure out how they're going to grow themselves and help grow other people as well. So it's just huge. And kudos to you to taking the time to come onto the podcast and be vulnerable and talk about yourself. Talk about the things that you're doing within the community. So again, I can probably go on all night just giving you praise, but very awesome of you. So
yeah, I think it's awesome. Just kind of a message to yourself and that younger generation that you guys are like, the way I look at it, and we're one of the younger generations, but we're not the youngest, right? Right. But the younger generation sees what's really wrong, right, with society or the way that things are happening. So I think it is important to bring them into conversations so that we can get that fresh perspective. You know, if you're in a house that stinks, you won't know it stinks if you're always there, right? But when the homie comes over and he's like, bruh,
yo, it smells.
What does it smell like? Right? So it's that perspective, right? A fresh... in that situation, a fresh nose to let you know that you should stink. But exactly. So thank you again for coming on to the podcast. It was special to have you and look forward to helping out in the future.
Yeah, thank y'all both so much. This has been precious time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Until next time, we'll see you next week on Overstepping Poverty. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Overstepping Poverty. We hope you found this week's discussion informative and thought-provoking. We know that tackling poverty is a complex issue, but by working together and understanding the root causes, we can make progress towards creating a more equitable society. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to our show. Until next time, let's take the next steps in Overstepping Poverty.